Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we should just get started. All right, my name's Preston. I'm a consultant at Fraiser Sustainability, and I'll be monitoring the session today. Before jumping in, we would love to give you a bit of background on who we are. 3R is a full-service sustainability consulting firm that works with clients from different industries, helping them with a variety of different services, such as sustainability strategy and management systems, climate-related risk analysis, greenhouse gas emissions management and target setting, energy audits, packaging and product sustainability, and much, much more, including sustainability assurance services. Next slide. We offer multiple webinars throughout the year, and you can stay in the loop with our upcoming events by joining either our mailing list or following us on LinkedIn. This QR code is attached to our LinkedIn. All our webinars are free to attend, and the webinars are posted on our website. So any of the past ones you've seen advertised are available for you to view online, and future ones can be sent out as well if you join that mailing list. Our upcoming sessions I'm super excited about. We have one on supplier engagement in August, and then another one focused on customer requirements for specifically EcoVadis in October. One is going to be happening in September as well around the lead system, just getting a date confirmed on that. Another thing to mention is we're going to be utilizing the Q&A feature today instead of the chat, which you might be used to. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, please take advantage of the expertise we have in the room by utilizing that Q&A feature on this webinar platform. We'll have time at the end for questions, and if we don't get to anything, we can follow up via email as well. All right, before we kick off, I'd love for my presenters to introduce themselves. Fraiser, I'll hand it to you.
Great. Thanks, Preston. Hi, everyone. My name is Fraiser Opel, and I co-lead our product and packaging sustainability service line at 3R. I come from a long career in supply chain strategy and sustainability for consumer goods companies and have done a lot of work in the packaging space, including navigating extended producer responsibility laws to help advance circularity and decarbonization goals. So I'm personally really excited about this new extended producer responsibility regulation for packaging because it really provides everyone with the same playbook to follow. And it really invites all of us to participate in designing and funding a more circular system. Christina?
Thanks, Fraiser. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Fontanesi. I'm also a consultant on the product and packaging sustainability team here at 3R. I have over a decade of experience in the sustainability space, mainly focused in CPG and retail. I specialize in circular economy solutions and helping businesses connect business value to sustainability initiatives. And so, like Fraiser said, I'm super excited behind EPR regulations and the momentum that it's driving the circular economy transition. And we are helping our clients navigate these regulations and helping them achieve compliance and beyond. So today we're going to cover the essentials of EPR. What are the regulations? Why are they in place? Who needs to comply? Who are the players in the regulation? When are the deadlines to be aware of? And how to navigate these regulations and how to comply. And then we'll also touch base on how our team can support you through these regulations. So what is EPR? EPR stands for Extended Producer Responsibility. It's a policy framework that assigns producers the responsibility for managing a product's end of life. So today we're covering the EPR regulations related to packaging. And the end of life cycle includes the collection, recycling, and disposal of packaging, shifting the accountability from the governments and taxpayers to those who are introducing the products on the market. So these policies really promote a sustainable waste management by holding the producers accountable for the products that they're placing on the market and also the environmental impact. So unlike the traditional waste management where local governments and taxpayers are bearing the cost burden, EPR shifts that to the businesses. And this framework is really increasingly being adopted in the US and also globally to align environmental goals to reduce landfill use and increase resource efficiency. And go to the next slide. Thank you. So EPR is a key driver in the circular economy transition. I'm going to just give a quick explanation of the circular versus linear economy models to help explain why EPR regulations are crucial. So the graphic in blue on the left is the linear economy model. It follows take resources from the earth, make products, use the products, and then dispose. So in a linear economy model, packaging like plastic bottles or cardboard often just ends up in landfill, and this really results in a lot of wasted resources. In a circular economy, the graphic on the right in green keeps materials in use for as long as possible or through composting, which minimizes the environmental impact. So in the case of context of packaging, the circular economy operates in two cycles. The technical cycle, where materials like plastics or glass are recycled into new products, or the biological cycle, where biodegradable materials like paper return to the environment safely as nutrients. So a major shortcoming of the current system is underfunded recycling infrastructure, leading to just low material recovery rates. So EPR addresses this by requiring producers to fund the collection and recycling programs, which enhances the infrastructure and increases the material recovery. Next slide, please. So here we just want to touch base. EPR is a global trend. It's not just something we're seeing here in the US. Here is a graphic by CFLAX that shows in the darker shade of red are all the countries that have mandatory EPR regulations in place, and in the lighter shade of red are all the countries that are developing EPR frameworks or in the legislation phase. So this is a global trend that as a brand, producer, importer, or a packaging manufacturer, if you're planning to expand into these markets or if you're in these markets, you should be aware of. And then here in the US, here is a graphic of the landscape, which is rapidly evolving. So states with past EPR legislation are shown in dark blue on this map, and then in light blue are the states with proposed legislation. So as you can see, EPR is going to play a critical role in companies' packaging and sustainability strategies, and really understanding the state-specific requirements will be key for compliance. Next slide, please. And here's just a quick overview of the projected impact of EPR. So here is a study and stats from a study that was conducted in 2024 by the Recycling Partnership. And they found that the four first adopting states, California, Oregon, Colorado, and Maine, through adopting EPR, it increases their materials recovered from 34% to 66%. So really significant. And just those four states alone are going to impact our national recycling rate and increase it to 24%. If four other states adopt, it's going to increase the recycling national rate to 67%. So really significant, huge impact of these regulations. Another just keynote is that implementation after legislation is passed takes about 3 to 5 years. So this really just highlights the need for early preparation. So EPR goals vary by state. So this is a really critical component of EPR, that there are different obligations, fee structures, and goals per state. It can get kind of complicated as brands to navigate what the different mandates are per state. So for an example, California's SB 54 mandates 100% recyclable or compostable packaging by 2032. A 25% reduction in plastic packaging and a 65% recycling rate for single-use plastic. Oregon is targeting a 50% plastic recycling rate by 2028. Minnesota has a goal of 100% of packaging is recyclable, reusable, or compostable by 2032. And then Colorado's goals have not been formally announced, but their goals will be tied to the state's circular economy plan. So who must comply? So just a reminder here that it's crucial to work with your legal team to verify whether you are under obligation as a producer. But as mentioned, the regulations, vary per state, but this is just a general criteria to help prepare you. So producers include brands, licensees, and importers selling packaged goods if the brand is not in the US. There's different thresholds in terms of revenue per state. So as an example, for Colorado, it's 5.6 million and at least 5.6 million in global revenue or 1 ton of packaging. Oregon is 5 million in global revenue and California is 1 million in state revenue. And then there's also some exemptions in terms of industries. There's exemptions for certain small businesses as well as nonprofits and specific goods like medical and pharmaceutical products.
Great, thanks, Christina. So I get the fun job of getting more into the logistical elements of EPR. And I'll start with what I have to report as a brand. First is the units of packaged product that you're actually selling into the states with EPR law. Second is then the weight of that packaging by format, such as boxes or envelopes, and material type, like plastic, paper, metal, etc. And then the third general thing is the recyclability or compostability of your packaging. Okay. So how do I get packaging data at all? First, you need to determine which packaging in your supply chain is in scope for that state EPR regulation. Then you need to actually get into the unit level data of your packaging, and that really depends on the availability of data in your supply chain. There's 3 main approaches that you could take. One is leveraging the bill of materials, and this is the most accurate approach as it should include the components and the weights of your packaging materials. The second approach that you could take is actually weighing a representative sample of your packaging and then extrapolating that data for a total volume. And the third approach you could take is actually working with your packaging suppliers to get this data. And that really reduces the burden on the brand side, but really requires a partnership with your supplier. And just good to note that the data quality or availability might vary by supplier. What will it cost? So again, this really varies by state, but in general, fees are based on packaging type, the weight of your packaging, and the recyclability of your packaging. There's then, beyond the base fees, an opportunity for a concept called eco-modulation. And these are really adjustments that can be made to the fees that you owe in the form of either incentives or disincentives based on the sustainability of your packaging, such as whether the materials are bio-based or have recycled content. And then beyond fees that you need to pay, there's also just an important note to know states are taking this seriously, and there are quite hefty fines for non-compliance if you're not paying your fees. They can range anywhere from $10,000 to up to $100,000 per day, depending on the state. And then other penalties beyond fees for non-compliance could include sales bans or reputational risk, because brands that are paying fees or not will be made publicly available. So important to pay your fees on time. On the right is an example of an EPR fee total for a brand. Let's say we had a brand that sold product with 200,000 pounds of packaging in Oregon in 2025. 130,000 pounds of that packaging was plastic, 70,000 pounds of that packaging was paper. The way the fees would be calculated for that next year would be the plastic 130,000 pounds is 24 cents per pound, so that's a $31,000 total fee. The paper would be 70,000 pounds times 6 cents per pound, so that's a $4,000 total fee. You can quickly start to see here that the packaging type, material type does matter in regards to the total fees that you're paying. And that comes out to then a total of $35,000 with then a potential eco-modulation adjustment of 10 to 20%. And in Oregon, there are fines up to $25,000 per day for non-compliance. Okay, so we also want to just step back and help you understand the key steps to follow and the dates by state. So if you're a producer, there are 3 general steps. First is registration with the pro. Second is submitting your data. And then third is paying fees. And the deadlines are different by state. So the red on this slide denotes the deadlines which have already passed. So for registration, Colorado's deadline passed in October of this last year. Oregon's deadline passed in March of 2025. Minnesota registration is due this month in July, and California is coming up next in September. Data submissions, Oregon data was due in March. Colorado data deadlines are right now in July, and California is happening in November, with subsequent dates following. And then fee payments. Oregon is up first, with fees beginning to be due this month in July, and then following states in upcoming years. And that's a lot later in different states because fee structures are still being determined under each state's produced EPR law. Lots of TBDs on this slide too, so important for us and you to be aware of changes and evolutions to these key dates. Okay, so now we'll get into a bit more of the nuts and bolts of this process. So again, if you're a producer, to be legally compliant, these are the more detailed steps that you need to follow. One is determining your EPR obligations, and you really need to partner with your legal teams to determine if you're an obligated producer. So as part of that process as well, you need to assess the sales of your business to ensure that you actually sell into the states where EPR laws are active, and also ensure that you're not exempt in any way, most commonly due to revenue thresholds or the types of plants that you sell. You then need to register, and as mentioned, this is a legal step. It's really important that you're aware of those deadlines by state. And then third, you need to start gathering your data and collecting packaging details across your supply chain. The second series of steps on this slide are calculating your packaging volumes, reporting and paying fees. So you'll calculate those packaging volumes by material, format, and weight by state. And then also really important to ensure that you're on track with being in compliance with state EPR requirements that Christina shared. For example, in California, by 2032, 100% of your packaging materials will need to be recyclable or compostable. So it's really important that you start building a roadmap towards that goal. You'll then report your data once you have it to the producer responsibility organization. Requirements vary by state, so that's important to be aware of. And then you'll submit and pay your fees, which the pros will determine. This is an annual process, so you really need to make sure you have teams engaged and a solid process established so that you're ready to do this year over year. Okay, so I've mentioned pros several times throughout this slide deck and thought it was worth a pause to explain what they are. A pro is a producer responsibility organization, and this is really the partner to an EPR law. They are responsible for effectively implementing that legislation and ensuring that it achieves the goals that it's set out to do. Circular Action Alliance is the pro for Oregon, Colorado, and California, and that's a great thing because they will help to drive consistency in the process. So what do they do? Again, they'll help producers comply with EPR laws, providing guidance and the data submission forms, etc. They'll also then, of course, charge the fees to producers based on the type and the volume of packaging that is put onto the market. And most importantly, they'll then be responsible for taking those fees and then funding the collection, sorting, and recycling of packaging in that state. They'll also report to the state government about all of the packaging that's been placed on the market, collection and recycling rates. And then also they're really funding campaigns to educate the public about recycling awareness. So crucial role there. So they're working across a lot of different stakeholders between governments, businesses, and communities to really get after the overall goal to reduce waste and increase recycling. Okay, so we've gone through general steps, but the reality is different if you're a brand putting packaging into the marketplace or if you're a packaging manufacturer. So for brands, you really need to follow the steps that I've previously outlined. And what I'll highlight here is, again, that opportunity to reduce your fees with improved design through that eco-modulation concept. If you're a manufacturer, you're impacted less directly on the compliance side, but changes in packaging that brands want to make to reduce those fees have to happen with you. So there's really an important partnership in play here. Those manufacturers will need to provide data to your customers so that they can report the packaging accurately. And then also, really important to monitor these regulations and think about staying competitive with EPR forward designs so that you can grow your business with that concept and protect your client base as well. So again, EPR really requires both manufacturers of packaging and users of packaging and brands to be engaged. It's a law that's really changing a system, and that potential is exciting. Okay, so recap, where have we been? We hope that you now have a bit of a better understanding about the essentials of EPR, what it is, why it's important, who needs to be aware and involved when things are happening, and how you actually start this process. And then secondly, we want to share how 3R can help to support you. So again, this is a really exciting space with a lot of potential for both our environment and your business. Across the spectrum, wherever you are, we can meet you where you are, and whether that's simply staying compliant or really going beyond compliance to look at reducing costs and gaining competitive advantage. On the compliance side, we can really be your partner in this confusing landscape, and need to work with your legal team to help you assess the regulations and see what could be applicable to you. We can help you map in scope packaging in your supply chain and systematize data collection processes. And if this is just too much to handle internally, we can take that whole reporting lift off of your shoulders, if you need that kind of support. Beyond compliance, again, EPR is an opportunity for both brands and manufacturers to really participate in the effort to drive a more circular supply chain and gain a competitive advantage. And that's whether you want to really be and lead as a preferred supplier that's forward thinking with EPR, or if you are a brand who wants to use packaging as a tangible opportunity to really reflect your values about sustainability with your consumers. It's a really great opportunity. So we can help you evaluate your packaging portfolio and determine where there's opportunity to make changes to ensure you're compliant, save money, and advance your circularity agenda. We can help you use tools like a life cycle analysis or carbon tools to really quantify the impact of your packaging and help you prioritize where you need to make change. We can help you with redesigning the packaging itself, and most importantly, piloting those new designs through your supply chain to ensure that it's effective. So this is a space that needs attention. It needs attention with companies not only to ensure you're in compliance with a new law, but also to realize that there's a lot of positive potential for your business when you focus on this space. So in conclusion, EPR is here. It's happening now. It can be confusing, but we want you to know you're not alone and want to encourage you to take advantage of this time to really benefit your business. Thanks for your time today, and I'll turn it over to Preston for questions.
Thank you both. That was wonderful. Great overview of everything, and we got some good questions, so we can pivot over there. Someone is asking how compliance will be monitored.
I can answer that. That's a great question. So the Circular Action Alliance will be monitoring compliance through audits. So they've already stated that for non-compliant producers, they might face a few things, including a publication of a list of non-compliant producers publicly on their website, late penalties, and fees up to, like Fraiser mentioned, $100,000, as well as retroactive payment obligations.
Great. And then we know that the reporting is a bit confusing. Someone asked any best practices you would want to share about EPR reporting? Maybe Fraiser.
Sure. Again, this is a first time approach for everyone. So we're all figuring it out together. But ideally, companies have a centralized packaging data system. Ideally, you have an approach to leverage standardized measurement units for your packaging. And you can also effectively, through that system, track attributes like recycling capabilities, post-consumer recycled content, etc. And then finally, you need to make sure that system is available for you to regularly review and leverage in upcoming reporting cycles.
Great. Thank you. And thank you everyone for sending in your questions. We got a couple more. Keep them coming. Looks like we have a retailer. Someone's asking about the obligations for retail.
Yeah, that's an interesting area. So, which we've dived into, Fraiser and I, because this really, it varies per state and there's unique obligations for each state, as we mentioned. But if a retailer has private label products that used covered materials, which covered materials can be found on the Circular Action Alliance website, or if the products are covered materials themselves, for example, foodware, then that retailer will be obligated as a producer. Another role that they'll play is retailers might need to work with brands to provide them with the accurate information that they'll need to report to the CAA. And then lastly, these requirements are still being solidified, but retailers and wholesalers in California may have additional reporting requirements. And the CAA is working with Cal Recycle to specify those obligations. So look out for that in the next couple months or so as they finalize that regulation. And then just reminder to consult with your legal counsel if you're unsure if you are considered a covered producer, because the Circular Action Alliance is unable to provide any type of legal advice.
Thanks. Okay, another good one. Will the EPR fees or costs of recyclable packaging impact pricing for consumers? Good question.
I can jump into this one. It's a really good question, and one that we've been talking about for sure. I think the answer in general is yes, prices could adjust. There have been some studies, one that we've read from the Recycling Partnership found that there actually, though, is a relatively weak correlation between EPR fees alone and higher prices for product, because there's just so many factors that impact this, like supply and demand, competition, etc. So less correlation than maybe anticipated there. And then for overall pricing of packaging, when we start to shift to more sustainable materials, overall in the short term, yes, as demand goes up for more recycled content, for example, there could be a supply constraint, and that could lead to higher material prices for that packaging. And that could impact prices of product depending on your pricing structure. But in the long term, the overall goal of EPR and the system is to increase demand and then the volume and accessibility of recycled materials, which will then drive down costs. So hopefully it smooths out in the long term.
Thanks. Okay, I think we have time for one or two more. Is shipping packaging in scope?
Can keep rolling. Another good question.
Yes.
This one, this is the adventure of looking at state-dependent requirements. It differs. And Oregon, yes, shipping packaging is in scope. For other states, it's not. So again, it's really important to read about the law in each state that you sell product into so that you know which packaging is in scope or not.
I have a feeling this was a similar answer, but is B2B packaging in scope?
Yes, very similar. It's state dependent. For example, Colorado, no, it's not. Packaging that is not intended to be distributed to the final end consumer is not in scope. In Oregon, in some cases, yes, B2B packaging to ship, for example, like milk to a retail store is in scope, so that end customer is the consumer. And this is also just very scenario specific. So for these type of obligation requirements, just, you know, it's advised to consult with your legal counsel in detail, because there's a lot of kind of gray areas for each state.
Great, thank you. Good questions, everyone. There's a couple we didn't get to, so we'll follow up over email. I see one question that's very specific, and I'm gonna follow up over email for that one. But everyone else, thank you so much for taking the time to join today. Is there anything else either of you want to add before we wrap up?
Just please, Fraiser and I are available. If you have any other questions, you guys can send it to Preston and to our email, and you know, we're happy to jump on a call and speak through some of this and your unique situations further. And really, we're just, as Fraiser said, meeting our clients where they are to help navigate this and drive this initiative forward. So thanks for everyone for joining us today, and it was a pleasure to review this with Fraiser and Preston.
Thanks so much
everyone.
for your time, everyone. Take care and hope to hear from you. Bye-bye.
Bye.